Hey there everyone, Hitesh here back again with another video and welcome to Fun with Tailwind. So we have recently started a series on Fun with Tailwind where I walk you through with how I deal up with the things in the CSS. Again, giving the fact that I'm not a super expert in the CSS or the Tailwind, but so far I've been able to navigate through with all the designs that comes up to my way. And I'll share all these tips and tricks and hacks that I have gained over the years as experience in dealing with the CSS. So in this video, I'll walk you through as a kind of a crash course of how you can build any layout that you really want to build with just the Tailwind. And it doesn't involve too much of the CSS. Once you understand the core foundation and the hacks of it, that's it. You'll be able to design any layout at all. So let me walk you through with that, how this is being done. And first, let's understand a little bit of the UI and UX approach. I'm not a UI UX expert, but over the years I have dealt and have got a chance to work with so many of these experts that I have noticed a few things. So let me share with that. Again, by no means this is an expert resource on the UI or something, but let me share what's my analysis on that. So let me share the screen first. And first, we will try to understand what actually I'm trying to share with you for. So let's just say this is our mobile screen. This is how usually mobile looks like. And on the other hand, this is how our desktop looks like. Almost kind of the same. So the difference between both of them is that they are actually different in the space. This one is more on the vertical top to bottom side. This one is more of a horizontal size. So in the world of mobile, what I've noticed is that you don't have too much of the option. The easiest of option on all the mobile screen, what people prefer is one thing at a row. So if we have a one row like this, we like to display the content just a bottom row like this, and so on and so forth. This is usually the display. The block itself or the row itself might contain card, maybe buttons or something like that. This is the most common design that I have seen. On the other hand, what I've noticed, what some in very rare case is being done, is you sometimes have these kinds of block which are divided into two parts. So this is usually the situation of my row, that over the years I've noticed that, hey, this is all it looks like. The moment you try to inject three of them in any of the mobile devices, this is not considered as a great approach because this is too clumsy for anybody to actually see and visual. There are certain designs in which we have three rows in that, but this is considered as clumsy. The max that we want on the mobile device is two. This is what I've seen over the years. So yes, these are possibilities to have that, but this is what it looks like. So on the mobile device, all I have to worry about is either my row or my content should take entire space or at a max should be divided into two parts. That's my major problem, which I have to address on the mobile screens. On the other hand, the bigger screen has a different way of analyzing the things. On the bigger screen, there are variations in that. The first variation is equal halves and the second variation is non-equal halves. Let me walk you through with that. So the first variation that we are going to talk about is actually equal sections. That would be better. So this is my equal section. And the another one that we have is something known as non-equal section. Non-equal section, that's what we have. Okay, so what's the difference between the equal section and non-equal section? Let me walk you through. So in the equal section, what you're going to notice that you will find something like which takes the entire row of the screen. Little bit rare, but it might happen. The most usual case that you're going to see that in the equal section, your screen is actually divided into two equal portion of it. This is the most common layout designs that you're going to see. Two equal portion. Right now they are not very equal, but just try to get the sense of what I'm saying. Or you will see that your screen is divided into three equal parts. So we have some kind of a layout architecture which goes like this, or maybe which goes like this. Three equal parts. We also have some of the screens which actually takes it a little bit far apart and have four equal parts. That's also doable. This is how, let's just say two, and let's just say we have three. They're not equal by any means, but this is what the usual design you are seeing. The common thing between all these design is this one actually divides the screen into two equal parts. This one divides the screen into three equal parts. This one divides the screen into 4 equal parts. No matter what it is, these are equal section. Moving 5 equal section, rarely, but once we understand how we can actually divide this into 4, it's doable with the 5 and 6 and so on. But from the good UI perspective, this is how it looks like. And this is actually the first part, which is the equal section. There's a non-equal section to it as well. Let's go with the non-equal section of how does that looks like. In the non-equal section, you'll see that sometimes there are rows which looks like this one takes probably 25%, and rest whole thing is actually taken up by the other part of it. This is how usually the row is divided. This might flip as well. This container might come up something like this. Oops, not like that. This might come up in this side, and this one might come up in this side. That's adjustable, that's doable, but in this, everything gets an unequal proportion of this. And you'll notice that sometimes this one might shrink a tiny bit, little bit more. This one might expand a little bit more, but the whole idea is they never share equal space on this one. So this is the most common one. Another one that you're gonna see quite often is this one takes a little bit portion here, and then this one takes a lot more portion, and then this one takes a little less portion. And you will notice in the Tailwind docs even, this exact kind of design is there. So we have this whole thing. If I go ahead and say I want to look into installation, probably not installation, maybe dark mode. Yeah, this is what you can see. This one takes a little bit less portion. The right one takes a little bit less portion. This part is really big. And what you'll notice on the smaller screen, what they try to do in this one, they try to hide this first one, they try to hide the second one, and this one takes the whole screen on the mobile. When we move to mobile, again, same thing. This one is taking the entire space, or at a max, they take 2 screen. Now notice this one here. So this is the common pattern. The first one, the right one goes away. At the very first, try to inch it a little bit. The moment I go into mobile, this one takes the whole screen. So that's the hack which I have noticed in almost every website that I work through with this. So this is the whole thing. Now I have a big overview picture. Let me summarize this, that on the mobile screen, it's usually the content should take the entire space. That's all it is. At a max, it might take, hey, this might take 2 equal screen. On the mobile, nobody prefers that this one should take, like for example, this one should take a space like this. This one should go like this. This is usually considered as not so great practice with the UIs. Yes, there are UIs with that, which actually doesn't follow this, but very rare case, although can be done, but you will rarely notice that. In the mobile, the best is user has a best experience when he can tap on the content and see the content in a good width. So either it is 2 equal halves or it is the entire one. And here, let's summarize this. Equal section. The screen is divided into 2 equal part, 3 equal part, 4 equal part. That's usually it is. In the non-equal section, one portion takes majority, one portion takes minority. Now, how much is the majority minority? We will figure it out in a minute, but this is the whole idea. So got it? Mobile screen, just 2 options majorly. On the big screen, 2 options only. Equal sections, non-equal section. If you understand this big picture, then building any layout is much, much easier. And you will see that how easy it is actually to build it. Always see the website from the row perspective first. What goes inside the row is a different perspective altogether. I'll walk you through with a separate crash course on that. But notice here, there might be entire card in it, or might be just image, or might be 4 images in that. But this is how usually the designs are there. And go ahead and check out any website. You will see that entire thing is row-wise designed. Even if we go to the Tailwind homepage, this is taking the entire left to right. This portion, this row takes 2 parts, this part and this part. This one is a little bit longer one. This is a shorter one. Notice here, an image on the left side, a content on the right side. 2 portions, that's it. This one, whole thing, just one big row. This one, this whole thing, 2 portions, 1 image, 1 this one, that's it. This portion divided into 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. That's it. What goes inside, we'll worry about them later on. Notice here, anything that you work out through, this is how the content layout is designed. Just go ahead and take a look on this. In this one, right side entirely empty. This portion, we have content. And then same, half and half divided. This one, empty. So you just scroll anything and you'll see that this is a common pattern, and this is how I always look for it, that how things are actually being designed. So How we're going to do this? Now it's time to write some code. Let's click on the component, and for this particular video, I highly recommend, not the component, docs actually, that you actually bump this video onto 4K. It will be much more easier because to understand these things, it's actually rather easier to work in the playground. Yes, in the last video, we did a setup of doing all these things into VS Code setup as well. But here, since the output is on the right side, it's much more easier to actually have a visual aspect of how things are actually done. So what we're going to do is we'll just zoom it a tiny bit. Don't want to do it too much, otherwise it's a little difficult to actually move it like this. Okay, first of all, let's go ahead and remove everything that we have. Now, the first thing that I want to do is, let's say we have a div. This is the outer div. Inside this, I will have an inner div. This div will have some of the properties, but first let's have two of these divs. And what I'll do is let's have a couple of cursors, and then we'll have a class. What all classes you want in this one? Obviously, this div will not have any content. So let's go ahead and give it a minimum height of what, 100 pixels? Minimum height of whatever you like, 100 pixels seems good. So now this div has a height, and we're going to go ahead and do a rounded LG for rounded corners on these larger widths. And let's give them shadow as well. Shadow, just to make it look good. Otherwise, no point in that. Let's finally give them a background color so that we can see them on the screen much better. They are still on the screen, but not really that visible. So BG-orange-500. We'll use the shade of 500 because it looks good. Now, obviously, this is orange. Let's go ahead and change this one to teal. Okay. Now, this is how it looks like by default. Obviously, each div is a block level element, so it goes from left to right. If you need something like this, then obviously it looks great, even on the smaller screen. But the problem comes up when you want to have multiple layouts with this one. So what my hack is to design any kind of layout is actually to introduce the grids. Now, grid looks absolutely crazy. It has so many properties, but I'm not going to teach you all the properties in this video. This is not a grid tutorial. This is moreover a hack of designing any layout. So if you want a grid tutorial, there are plenty of other tutorials on that. Now, once I do grid, it does change nothing at all. Where actually things go change is how you do and design the things. Now, another hack that I have is I always think from the bigger screen first. Now, you might be thinking, hey, we were trained to do something like design mobile first. Yes, I design for mobile first, but I think for the bigger screen first. So the way how I do things is the classes like grid, which will be applied on the smaller screen, I don't care about them. But if I'm taking care of something in the bigger screen, I always think like from smaller and above screen. So this is how the breakpoints of the tailwind works. SM, then you write it. That means this property will act for all the screens which are above the smaller screen. So the way to think it is always think from on the smaller and bigger screen, I will do this, so that you can later on come up and apply properties without any colon or something, and that applies on the mobile. So by default, the properties apply on mobile. So I go ahead and say that, you know what? I want that on the smaller and above screen, I want 2 columns. So I'll just go ahead and say grid dash cols, and I want 2 columns. The moment I do it, obviously we need a little gap. Let's go ahead and have a gap of 2, 4. 2 is good enough. 4, too much. 2. Okay. No, just not like that. I will just have a gap of 4. Come on. Yeah, this one is good enough. Okay, so we have this one. And on top of this, let's have a margin of 4 so that this is better. Now notice here what happens with this. Okay, did I miss anything? Okay, it looks good. Now notice here, when I said smaller and above, it says, hey, just go like this. So always on the all big screen, this is going to be divided into 2 equal half. No matter what you do or what you put inside them, doesn't really matter. The moment I go on the smaller screen, automatically these are designed for me. I don't have to do anything at all. So automatically the grid takes place and my designs are done. This is how you want most of your designs. But let's just say for some reasons you want to override that on the smaller screen, I want to follow the same thing. Then I can come back and override this that, hey, grid dash cols dash 2. So I'm explicitly writing first for the bigger screen. Yes, I know everybody says design mobile first, but in the reality, if you'll just work in the production, nobody writes for the mobile first. Everybody just worry because the screen is opened up when you're writing code onto a big screen, and this is how it works. Okay, so notice here, now on the smaller screen also, we are following the part. So if you remember, half of our work is done. Automatically, this one works, and we have explicitly told it to work on the half and half. So mobile actually is not that difficult to work on, and you can achieve any layout with this. How nice this is. Okay. Now, one more thing. The moment you are saying grid calls to and grid calls to and all of that, make sure your inner divs are equally matching that as well. So if I'm dividing things into two columns, there should be two divs to actually match those columns. So this is the first thing that you have to remember. I'll actually copy and paste all of this and we'll give it to you. So for example, right now, let's just go ahead and duplicate this. And we will just comment this out to actually have a discussion on this. Now let's just say I have another of this one. So I have 3 of these elements. This one is not teal. Let's just go with the red. Come on, select this. Red. Nice red. So notice here, since my grid is actually taking care for only 2 columns, but I have in this div, I have 3 of the divs to take care about it. I have to think like that. That is the first thing. So let's just say you want your screen to be divided into 3 equal parts. All I have to say is, first of all, I'll worry about above screen, smaller and above. That's my way of thinking. So I just go ahead and say for smaller and above screen, that means the larger screen, let's just go ahead and say grid calls 3. All right. So notice here, when I go ahead and move, this is all 3 columns. But the moment I go ahead and say hit the breakpoint of the smaller one, since I'm zoomed in, that's why it's looked a little bit there. Otherwise, if I go to 100% zoom, you'll see that it is actually a smaller screen. You can see a little hovering of that. But on the smaller screen, you can just go ahead and do something like this, like, hey, on the smaller screen also I want 3 equal parts. But since I mentioned, you will rarely find this is too much squished for it. You don't want to do this. On the bigger screen, this looks great, and this is how I exactly want. But what should I do on the smaller screen? In such scenario, you will rarely find that people want to divide them into 2 equal half, because there are 3 elements in this row. So what should be the best way to handle such scenario? You'll notice that let's just take it entire width of the mobile screen. That is the best way to handle it. So in that case, what should I do? We just noticed it. You have to do nothing. Sometimes not doing the things is actually the best thing. Let's just remove this grid calls 3, which is actually for smaller screen. Let's just go ahead and it automatically does it for me. I don't have to do anything at all. All I have to worry about is smaller and above screen. There we go. Beautiful design. There we go. 2 equal parts. And this one, mobile optimized. So grid is actually not that difficult to worry about if you go and do something like that. Okay. What else can we do? We can actually divide it into 4 equal parts as well. So if I go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Now we have 4, another color. Maybe purple. Yeah, good shade of a purple. So now notice here again the same problem occurs. You are taking care in the parent element about 3 only, but there are 4 elements. So take care of the 4 elements. The best way that I would love to do it is just go ahead and say 4. There we go. On all the bigger screen that is smaller and above, it actually works. On the smaller screen, automatically takes care of the things for me. I don't have to do anything. But on the smaller screen, if you want that they should be half and half, not a great design, you have not started great. You can do that, but it would be really, really difficult. So for example, let's just try this a little bit. I want that grid dash calls dash 2. If I go ahead and work like this, yes, now we are taking care of in each of the grid columns, there are 2, but I usually prefer not to do it. If it is 4 screen, I want them all to be on the 1 screen. I can do that. I can do that because I understand how the grid actually works on the outer layer. I can do this, but I don't prefer it. I usually prefer to actually just go ahead and not write anything. That's the best thing. Don't do anything. If I go ahead and work like this, this is better design in all together, this one here. Okay. So this is the basics of how things are done. Whether you have maybe 2 of the divs, 4 of the divs, doesn't really matter. So what we have covered so far is the equal portion. 2 portion, 3 portion, 4 portion. You can divide 5 portion, 6 portion, doesn't really matter. My talk is not going to give you any additional value if I just go ahead and add one more because I'll be changing the values. You get that. You get that already. Now let's move on and talk about this part, which is a non-equal section. What should I do to have this non-equal section? We have to take care about the mobile as well, which we will, but let's talk about the non-equal section. Okay. This one is good. I'll just have a duplicate of this and I'll comment the above because probably you might need that. Don't know why, but maybe. Okay. So what we're going to do is first, let's start with the 3 ones because that's where the majority, or let's start with the 2 because this is where I think you will learn the best. So now we have 2 of these elements, but I want to go non-equal. That means I want to have something like this, 20% or half, less than half of this one, 25%, and rest should be given to this one. So over the years, what I've noticed is you can actually have the grid columns, but here's the interesting thing. So far, we have been saying we want how many columns and all of that, but actually we can distribute these columns in the inner child based on how many total columns you have. I usually remember this as with something like how much property is there with the parent, that can only be divided. Now portion you decide 25% or 70% or 50-50, but parent need to have that much of the property. So this one right now you can see smaller and above, that means the bigger screens have only 4 of these ones. So half and half is automatically divided between them. So this is how it looks like. But let's just say these are only 2. So we'll just go ahead and say I want this to be 2. Okay, let's just go ahead and save this. Now what will happen on the bigger screen? This is how it looks like. So how can I go ahead and divide them? One thing that I learned over the years is, especially writing a lot of Bootstrap code, is designers usually like to divide their entire big screen into 12 equal columns, and then they distribute the inner child of how much space should be taken them. This is a very, very common technique in the design world. So what I'll say is, let's just say that how many columns we are going to have. So on the bigger screen, or this one is good, let's just say what happens when I go ahead and say 12. Really nice. Now they are obviously taking 2 spaces out of 12. But what you can do is you can actually distribute how many of the column span you would take. So for example, let's just say I say that out of the entire 12, how much columns you want to take. So just go ahead and say col span 2. So this one takes col span 2. Now how many is remaining out of the 12? That's again property distribution. So 2 portion was taken by one brother. So how much portion is going to be taken by another brother? So col dash span, and this one obviously is going to be 10. There we go. Nice and easy. Now one more thing is when I go ahead and shrink this, not great. On the smaller screen, since this is going to take that 10 part of it out of the 12, as soon as I shrink this, this doesn't satisfy the property. That's why this mayhem is happening. I don't want that. So since I have already taken care about the bigger screen, all I have to do now is take care about the smaller screen, which is easier. I can just go ahead and say on the smaller screen, which is the direct property, so I can just go ahead and say grid dash col, and I want it to be 2, and that's it. Now, notice here something strange that has happened. When I go ahead and say this grid calls is 2, that's okay. Your grid is going to take 2 equal portion of it, but still, there is a little bit of the space on the right side. It's trying to achieve that. That's because you have added some extra property on the child. This is taking 2 portion of it, but this is still trying to take the 10 portion. We have done a mistake. Can you catch it? We didn't thought of the smaller and the above screen. We just wrote it like that. So always take care, just write SM for such properties so that you can take care of the bigger screen first. So I'm going to go ahead and say this one is SM colon, and below this is also going to be SM colon. That means smaller and above screen. Now at least my bigger screen is fixed. So this one is there. So smaller and above screen. Since you didn't mention anything for the smaller screen, this is how it is being divided, because here you said grid calls 2, this portion. So grid should be divided into 2 columns. But if I go ahead and change it to 1, maybe this is I want. So there we go. On the bigger screen, they are taking unequal portion. On the smaller screen, there we go. So all I have to do is take care of the smaller and above screen. Rest of them don't take care. So notice here what happened. Let me just summarize this. We wanted that on the bigger screen, we want to have 12 column, or the 12 portion of the property. The portion of the property will be distributed on the smaller and above screen. So breakpoint and above screen, not the smaller screen. So we went 2 and 10. This was my portion. So this is what I loved. But what I want to do for the smaller screen, so I'll not write anything for them if this is I want. But if I want to overwrite it, then obviously I'll go ahead and write that, hey, I want it to be divided into 2 equal parts. So I'll just say, hey, our child are great, so let's just have it. That's it. You can go ahead and say it in 3 as well. Doesn't look great, but just wanted to give you that you can design any layout if you know even this much of the things. Okay, one more thing which is going to bother you a little bit. Okay, on the smaller screen, I want 1, so they are taking all equal portion. So let's just try to design something which is like tailwind. So let's go back onto the tailwind and try to see how this actually works. Let's go into dark mode. So not dark mode. Hover focus, utility first. Give me something. Spacing. Break. Do we have the third portion of it anywhere? Yeah, there we go. So my screen was a little short. So we can see this one is taking out of the 12, if you just ask me, probably 2 and 2 here, and rest of them is divided like this. Almost similar, we can just adjust them. So we definitely know that there are 3 of the columns I have to take care of this. This is the first part of it. Or let me just hit Command Z and actually have another one so that we can actually have a talk on this separately. There we go. I'll just go ahead and remove this. Ta-da. Okay, let's talk about this guy and try to design something like tailwind. Obviously, I know there are 3 elements on it. So there we go. We have orange, we have teal, and I'll go for purple. That looks nice. Purple. So we have 3 elements, but this is not how they look good for mobile. So this is the idea. I always worry about the smaller and above screen first. That automatically makes me worry about the smaller screen on the next step. So the bare minimum thing is, let's just have a grid and remove everything so that we can think accordingly. Okay, this is how we remove this one. And also let's remove the SM colon 2. You don't take any portion right now. We haven't distributed the property yet. No distribution of the property yet. Okay. So this is how it looks like. On the bigger screen, they take the div. On the smaller screen also, they take the div. So this is how they look like right now. Now what I want to do is, obviously, on the smaller and above screen, remember how I think the process. On the smaller and above screen, I want the grid to have a calls that should be divided into 3 equal portion. There we go, 3 equal portion that's being divided. But I want the property distribution to be a little bit different. So how I'll do is, I'll just go ahead and say this one. Now the 3 is not great. I want them to be divided into 12 equal portion. So there we go, 12 is the magic number. And this is a design standard magic number. I'm not making them up to be 12. I could have done it in the 10. That could make much more sense. But this is a design thing. Either they divide it into 6 or the 12. That's how they do it. So in this one, for the smaller and above screen, I'll just say, how much column span did you want to go? So I'll just say call dash span, and you take 2 portion of it, maybe 4. 4 is too much. 2 portion of it is good enough for you. And I think the same portion will be given to the last part of it. So just copy this and let's just paste this. Okay. But obviously now the distribution 2 and 2, 4. So we need to go with 8 to make it 12. And you need to be decently good in the math, not too much. So let's just go ahead and say this one is call dash span, and we'll go with the 8. So this is how our tailwind UI looks like, or a Twitter layout if you want to go with that. Once we are done with this, now notice here, this looks great, but on the smaller screen, we have worried about smaller and above screen. So notice here, not so great. It is doing its job great, the way it can be, so that nothing hides or nothing has unequal portion. I would say this is a good design as of now, but what happens on the tailwind is, the moment you actually move this, the right portion first of all disappears. So they have a medium breakpoint as well, and in the smaller screen, they have only the middle elements being displayed. You can worry about the medium point breakpoint as well, but my goal right now is to focus morely on the smaller breakpoint and above everything. So what do you want? So what I want is that this should be hidden. When it should be hidden, the first element or the last element. Let's talk about last element. When should be the last element should be hidden? On the smaller screen. So okay, let's just go ahead and make it hidden. If you do it like this, then you're worrying about the smaller screen first. No. We don't want to worry about the smaller screen first. We want to worry about the bigger screen first. So on the bigger screen, I want the display should be block. That's the way how you display it. So I'll say that on the smaller screen and above, I'll just go ahead and say The display will be block. So I'll just go ahead and say block. There we go. So display block, shortcut for it. And this one should be same. Everything should be display block on the bigger screen. So let's just try this. So last one. So on the smaller screen and above, you'll be displayed. But on the smaller screen, I want to hide you. So just go ahead and say hidden. Hidden. There we go. Save this. Now, obviously, the hidden actually goes at the very first, so don't worry. But notice here on the smaller screen, this one hides. On the bigger screen, it is available. Exactly like tailwind. There we go. It's gone. Now you want that the orange portion should also go away, and what is left is only the teal one. So I'll just do exactly same. I'll come up, say first I'll worry about the bigger screen. So on the smaller screen and above, go ahead and say block. So your block level element. But on the others, that means on the smaller screen, you are hidden. That's it. We have achieved the exact tailwind UI. There we go. This is how they actually do it. Now we can add additional breakpoint, and right now we are just thinking in two-dimensional space, the smaller screen and the bigger, but you can think in the medium perspective as well, that on the medium, the orange should be block, but on the smaller screen, the orange should be hidden. So it's all about thinking perspective, how you can go with that. I'm completely happy. If I'm on the smaller screen, the moment I go it, I want to hide both of them. I think that's a better design, so I'll go with that. And the same thing happens with the Twitter as well. The moment you try to shrink the Twitter, Twitter is basically 3-column layout again. The moment you try to shrink it, the right portion goes away. So that's exactly same. On the bigger screen, block level. On the smaller screen, hidden. And on the Twitter, even if you go a little bit on the smaller screen, this portion goes away and a new portion get unlocks. So the new portion is always hidden, but on the smaller screen, that's display block. That's how you see those navigation item there. So it's actually super simple. Now I hope you can understand what I'm trying to give you as a visual perspective of how things actually work. So now let's come back to the analysis. So we can now make a screen onto two equal portion, no problem at all. Grid can do that. And by the way, there are more properties in the grid if you work with that. There are grid, we have this one. Where is the property called span? We have row span and whatnot. I don't get into too much. I try to think my website from the rows perspective. So there is a row span as well, but I don't use it too much. I just always like to hack out my way. So this is what I have over the years figured out a way for me. So now we have two equal layouts, super easy to design. If we do nothing, automatically takes one portion on the screen and another portion below it. We can also divide the screen into 3 equal portion, 4 equal portion, 5 equal portion, 6 equal portion, no problem at all. We have also learned about the non-equal section where we can divide the entire grid into 12 equal portion, and out of that we can do the maths. 4 portion, 8 portion, 10 portion, 2 portion, however you want. You can actually give the equal portion as well if you wish. Like on the medium screen, I want to change the fancy layout. It's not usually good, but this you can do that. 12 portion. On the bigger screen, you want to give 4 and 8 portion. On the medium screen, you want to give 6, 6, and that's doable, but I don't touch it that much. So non-equal portion, you now know how to handle this. And this 3-column layout, this is also what we have done. Come on, don't do that. And on the mobile screen, we have noticed not doing anything is usually the best because it takes the entire screen. But if you explicitly want to do it, then you have to mention this. Always think from the smaller screen perspective, but do the things for the bigger screen. So the moment you say smaller and above, you make it a habit of writing smaller and above, smaller and above. That actually does so much of the things. So let's just go ahead and copy this. And I'll actually paste it in the VS Code as well. Right now, my VS Code is not even open. But anyways, this actually makes the tutorial as complete, that how we are actually doing the things and how it is. So this sums up your crash course on building and designing any grid that you want. I hope this video was fun, a little hacky. Yes, I haven't shown you all the things which you can do with the grid. There are more crazy things you can do, but this is my favorite part of the grid, of designing any layout that I want, and still no problem at all. That's it for this video. Hope you have enjoyed this. If you have enjoyed this, please do comment down below. Fill up the comment target. We have not a high-end target, but if you write the comment, it boosts me. It helps me to make more videos. That's it for this video. Let's go ahead and catch up in the next one.